finding beats and hooks and pockets that you don't even notice. It's just the same way how surreal I feel when I hear people in America talking about like tings or you know, taking bat ups or this, that. Like I hear people using our slang that we use on Instagram or wherever, and I see people incorporating it into their like day-to-day talks, and it just like it's always been cool.
There is still something awful happening in hip-hop. Even if we are about to enter a new era where things could never get better due to the establishments that are now representing rap music. Additionally, it comes from one of its own artists who, as a result of the events that have transpired and the person who is spearheading the movement in this new period, have become so successful that they are now destroying the lives of others. Naturally, Drake and all of his associated clowns are the subject of my reference. Because what has transpired just before Kendrick Lamar prepares to perform at the Super Bowl is one of the most shady things that has ever happened in the music industry. Ultimately, hip-hop's reputation will never seem worse to outside audiences, and its top stars will never receive the accolades it has taken more than 50 years to achieve, if Drake and other individuals continue to use similar tactics. But before we dig any deeper and reveal how terrible Drake's direction is for hip-hop as a whole, as well as for real people in general, please make sure to like and subscribe. Because of what is happening, the situation I am referring to is a report that was released by hip-hop media outlets the weekend of the Grammy Awards and just before the Super Bowl. This report suggests that the label heads of Dawg Entertainment may be in serious trouble because they are currently facing a lawsuit with some very bad allegations against them. Before we go any further though, it should be noted that this situation is going to get even stranger than you could have ever imagined, because only a few days after these claims were made public to major news outlets, the suit from the firm that was supposed to have filed has now been officially removed. To make matters even more dubious, the workers who were blaming the TDE executives for everything they were have been exposed and not only have never worked for the label, but they have also been found to be directly working for Drake as one of the managers of OVO sound artists. And even more directly, one has a client named Dennis Graham, who is Drake's father, of course. Even simply knowing this about these people's backgrounds suggests that something is wrong, to put it mildly. Beyond the complaint itself though, what's so odd and unsettling about this situation is that despite the fact that it was filed and has been out for months, it seems that no one was aware of it until rap sites began publishing about it simultaneously just before the Super Bowl. And that's where the trouble starts, because of course this lawsuit is about the people who run TDE, which is the label that Kendrick Lamar was on for years. It's making headlines and spreading in such a way that Kendrick Lamar is now being taken straight out of articles and read into claims. It goes without saying that certain hip-hop fans are going crazy right now and are attempting to paint Kendrick as a bad guy in addition to TDE. There's a lot to sort out with all of this, but it is evident from the fact that it is currently making headlines that someone who stood to gain financially from the story's release was planning to cause issues for Kendrick, TDE, the NFL, and the Super Bowl. The actions of Drake and OVO are clearly consistent with the list of people who would gain something from an announcement like this, especially when you compare it to someone who has a history of using the legal system as a weapon to disparage his opponents. Pretending that it doesn't is not necessary. Considering that the parties to this lawsuit are closely related to them, this is now particularly true. In all honesty, it appears like some of Drake's remarks about damaging people's reputations in his January freestyle were a premonition of this exact moment. The main issue with this is that beyond music and rap in general, we have reached a point where these grave accusations are no longer discussed or used as they once were, because attention is being paid to the real problem and obtaining justice for those who are harmed by it. However, some are now merely leaking these stories to paint others, in this case Kendrick Lamar, as worse persons than he would otherwise be. It's easy to see where the trouble lies in all of this, because at the end of the day, we are using major problems and issues to ignore the people they're truly affecting, and then attempting to discredit a person who has nothing to do with it in order to ruin what will be the most significant event in his career. It's terrible and depressing for Drake, in my opinion, that we have reached a position where he and others are going to such lengths to achieve their goals, as we are now seeing the actual significance of the systems we have in place just being manipulated. Furthermore, everyone is attempting to use what might be legitimate people suffering for their own gain without truly understanding the issues at hand, rather than genuinely attempting to prove and pursue justice with them. And we know this is true because even though he hasn't even mentioned it, Drake fans and those connected to OVO were talking non-stop when this planned story broke, bringing Kendrick into the fray and attempting to paint him as the one responsible for all of this. Just to give you an idea of how bad things are getting, this is the same community that remained silent when there was clear proof that DJ Academics was talking to people he shouldn't have been around and that he had done some genuinely disgusting and terrible things. They simply don't care about real issues and finding justice because, of course, they would have called out Academics and they wouldn't be supporting Drake, who is paid to stop these same cases that are out on TDE from ever getting to this point in the first place. I'm referring to Drake, OVO, and all of his fans because we live in a time when people are so emotional about music. And now this pitiful bunch of people only cares about taking the worst experiences of others to create a story that suits their own handy agenda. This is precisely what is meant to be understood when we discuss Drake and the group of individuals that merely encourage him. They are not hip-hop in any way since they simply do not value the art and competition of music. They are also distorting people's real lives in an attempt to get a gotcha moment on Kendrick and his supporters, which stems from their basic misinterpretation of something like rap beef. Furthermore, the fact that they ultimately chose to approach this campaign in this manner and attempt to discredit Kendrick Lamar before hip-hop had perhaps its greatest cultural moment in terms of simply reaching as many people as possible is just one more reason why this is so dishonorable and harmful to everyone who has ever cared about or worked in the hip-hop industry. Because Kendrick has been working to expand this space and demonstrate that it is capable of accomplishing things even more spectacularly and captivatingly than other genres and artists have ever been able to achieve. And I mean, just as we are beginning to see where hip-hop can go in the current light, from Drake's actions with UMG and Not Like Us, which are just creating such a mess, to now things like this which are being used to harm Kendrick's reputation, even though he has nothing to do with it, it is still attempting to create such a negative headline in order to ruin his Super Bowl performance. In the end, if we continue in this direction, the NFL and many other major entities will witness the mess that is being created from hip-hop due to the manipulation and narrative that is being used to smear its most successful artists. They'll soon decide that it's far better to have the same old squeaky, trouble-free pop singers at the top of their game because they never get pulled down like their contemporaries, which is what we're witnessing with hip music. And I mean, if this occurs, opportunities will simply be taken away from everyone who wants to get involved in the rap game from the top to the bottom, which would ultimately result in everyone losing. The need for subtlety and genuine compassion has never been more important than it is with Drake and the entire era we live in. It's just awful that hip-hop culture and its current leader are being reframed into this story about TDE members in order to make Kendrick look bad rather than genuinely attempting to assist this story and the people who might have been harmed by it. And no one is benefiting from this, not even Drake, because if this is the kind of culture he's attempting to create with rap, then these same things will not only eventually work against him, given the man's past, but they will also restrict his own development as a celebrity. And I mean, right now with rap taking center stage at the Grammys, the Super Bowl, and even at the Grammy Awards, from Kendrick Lamar to Playboi Carti, rappers are performing in stadiums, something that very few others have ever been able to do. This is essentially just setting a precedent for how high the bar is for a rapper in general. Everyone needs to gather themselves as a society and understand what is truly at risk. People should simply begin to distinguish between music and competition and the real terrible events that are occurring, and they should see everything so that none of this rap feuding is even relevant. Moreover, Drake is demonstrating once more why he is the worst thing in hip-hop right now, since he and his staff are confusing these two. After all, Drake has been talking about things like this in his latest freestyle. However, it seems that the NFL is supporting Kendrick and allowing him to do anything he wants during this halftime show, just like they did with Jay-Z. By standing up for him in this way, they are demonstrating their belief in the ability and character that will be shown at the show. At least for the majority of the hip-hop community, nobody is allowing this to negatively affect their opinion of Kendrick Lamar, even though this story has been causing the worst kind of trouble. Everyone knows how corrupt this part of the industry is where Drake works. And if anything, it has only made Drake and his community look worse because once again, Drake and those around him are demonstrating how different they are from the rest of us by using a serious situation like this in a way that is so tasteless that not only denigrates the entire genre from which you have built your career, but also ignores the significance of the issues at hand and uses it to promote stories about a rapper you lost to in a beef because you were upset about it. Furthermore, they simply lack the respect and value that it really takes to be a part of this thing we call hip-hop. So no matter what happens from here, they will never be able to stop Kendrick Lamar from finally exposing the truth to them, and they will never be allowed to return to this entire space. Now that you've heard all of this, tell me what you think about the whole thing and the odd way that this campaign was launched at the last minute to disparage Kendrick Lamar. Naturally, there's a lot on the line here, so please share your opinions in the comments section. And please remember to subscribe and like the video if you've seen it all the way through. It really helps me out. And now, if you want to see how Kendrick is still on the verge of having what may be the greatest single month in hip-hop ever, even though Drake used all of this to attempt to take him down, watch the recommendation video.